This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, everyone able to hear me? Everyone able to hear me properly?
Yes,
Yeah, thank you. So today, just let me know if you are facing any video issues or audio issues. Just let me know. So today we are going to start our first demo session. So here we came to learn ADE course. ADE nothing but what? Azure Data Engineer, right? Azure Data Engineer. Azure Data Engineer. What are the roles and responsibilities of Azure Data Engineer? And what are the roles we are having in the company whenever we are joining as Azure data engineer, and how many types of roles are there, and what are the cloud technologies. These all things we need to learn. First of all, there are a number of cloud vendors are there in the market, right? There are a number of cloud vendors are there, and apart from all the cloud vendors, three cloud vendors are most popular. One is Microsoft, another one is Amazon, another one is Google. These are the three cloud vendors mainly competing with each other these days. And these cloud vendors means they are providing some kind of cloud services with the name of some brand. That is nothing but the Microsoft is providing the cloud services with the name of what? With the name of Azure. Okay. And Amazon is also providing some cloud services with the name of Amazon Web Services. And Google is also providing some cloud services with the name of GCP, nothing but Google Cloud Providers. These are the three cloud vendors in the market currently competing with each other. And these persons, they are providing some, what they are exactly providing, they are providing some kind of cloud services. We'll talk about the cloud services later. First of all, before going to this, I just want to start from the scratch. Like you need to understand the basic. The basic should be very strong. Then only we can go to the further classes. So first of all, what is data? Data is a collection of Data is a collection of some information, right? Data is collection of some information, and there is a each and every organization which we can take, either it is a small franchise, small company, or it is a big franchisee, anything you can take. There is a data should playing a vital role in that, right? Without data there is no business. So if you want to do the business, there should be some data, and based on the data only we can take some decisions. Suppose we are putting some cloth cloth store, okay, and we are spending some money around 5 lakhs, 5 lakh rupees of money investment we are putting. So after some days, after 5 months or 6 months, you need to analyze your business, right? So how you will analyze your business? Based on the 6 months, how, what are the purchases you have done, what are the sales you have made? These all things uh, you need to consider, and based on that you can take decision whether your business is running in profits or loss. So those kind of analysis if you want to do, those kind of decisions if you want to take, either you want to run your business or close your business, that is depends upon data only. Based on the data only we can able to take the decisions. In every each and every organization like TCS, Accenture, all the organizations are running on top of this data only. They are having some client data, and they are processing the data. That is the most all the software organizations or anywhere, the data is playing a very vital role, right? So we are having some data, and where we are storing the data, because suppose if you are having some data means you need to store the data in somewhere, right? The data which we are storing in our terminology, we are calling it as database. What is database? Database is used to store the data. Okay. Database is used to store the data. And what is DBMS? DBMS is nothing but database management system. Database management system, nothing but the database. It is mainly doing the two things. One is to store the data, Second one is to process the data. Okay, to store the data as well as to process the data. These are the two main things in the database which will be doing. And if we are storing the data in which place? We are storing the data in the database in the format of what? In the format of the data which we are storing in the database is tabular format. Tabular format nothing but what? Rows and columns. Okay. If the data is available in the rows and columns format, then we are calling it as a tabular format. And the another name of table is what? Entity. Entity is nothing but the table. Table is nothing but the entity. So we are having some data and we are storing the data in the database. Database is nothing but is a place where we are storing the data. And which format we can store the data? We can store the data in the database in the format of tables, nothing but rows and columns. Okay, and the other name of table is what? Entity. So the next question, how many types of how many types of databases are there? How many types of databases are there? There are mainly two types of databases. One is OLTP, second one is OLTP. What is OLTP? OLTP is nothing but one kind of a database which we are calling it as online transactional processing system, whereas OLAP, online analytical processing. Okay. So these are the two main databases which we are having. So what is the difference between these two databases? See, we are telling that we can store the data in the database in the format of tables, right? So what is the significance of having two different databases? We can store the data in only one database, right? Means if you want to know, just you need to know the differences between these two databases. The differences between two databases we need to understand. Differences between OLTP and OLAP. See, these are the terminologies you need to understand before going to the Azure data engineering classes. Why? Because there might be asking the interview questions like what is OLTP and what is OLAP, and what is dimensional data modeling, what is ER data modeling. Those all things will come into picture now. So you need to understand the differences. First of all, we need to talk about OLTP, and the OLTP will be useful to store. It is used to store It is used to store current data, nothing but present data. Okay. Whereas OLAP, if you take OLAP, then OLAP is used to store what? OLAP is used to store current data means present data, right? But here OLAP is used to store historical data. Okay, historical data. If you want to store some today's data, okay, or today full data, then we can store it in the OLTP database. If you want to store 1 month back data, then we can store in the OLTP databases. And the second thing is the capacity of OLTP is less. Okay? The capacity means the memory which we can store the data is very less, whereas the capacity of OLAP is very high. Means if you want, you can store around something like 50 GB. Example, take an example of 100 GB of data you can store up to. But whereas in the OLAP, you can store up to 10,000 GB of data. That much difference will be there. So it is having huge amount of memory, huge amount of space will be there, and OLTP is having very less memory. Okay, and also the same thing, used to store it is used to store very less amount of data. Okay, it is used to store very less amount of data, whereas OLAP, it is used to store huge amount of data. Okay, and because of the reason, if you are having very less amount of data, the performance of the OLTP is very high. The performance of OLTP is very high, whereas the performance of OLAP is low. Why? Anyone just anyone just having any idea why the performance of OLTP is very high? Why the performance of OLAP is very low? Any idea? Anyone? Why? Because see here, the the amount of data which we are storing is very less. That is the reason the performance is very high. The amount of the data which we are storing is very low. That is the reason the performance is very sorry, the amount of data which you are storing is very huge. That is the reason the performance is very low. Suppose, tell me one example. I'll tell you one example. Suppose if you want to take one record, if you want to search one record from 1 month, okay, so it will take hardly 5 seconds of time. But if you want to search the same record from the 1 year, then what it needs to do, it needs to search from first month to last till last month, right? All the months, 12 months it will search. So it will take around 20 seconds of time. No, sorry, some around 50 seconds of time. So that much of difference will be there. So the performance of the OLTP is very high. Why? Because the amount of data which we are storing is very less. The performance of OLTP is very low because the amount of data which we are storing is very huge. Okay. So these are the main differences. And the last very important difference is the data model which we are following. The data model following by OLTP is ER data model. ER data model. Okay, year data model, whereas the data model which is following by the OLAP is dimensional data model. This is the important interview question they might ask you. Okay, the data model following by OLAP is dimensional data model. Here, what data model it is following? Dimensional data model. See, data modeling in the sense each and every database having its own architecture in the backend, right? So suppose if you take our mobile phones also, most of the phones are using in the backend Android, like operating system, whereas iPhone, those kind of phones, it is using iOS in the backend operating system. Like that, OLTP is also following some kind of data model in the backend, that is nothing but the ER data model, whereas the OLAP is following some kind of data model which we are calling it as a dimensional data model. Now you need to understand these two differences, then you can easily answer any question. Okay, what is ER data model? ER data model means entity relationship model. Okay, entity relationship model. What is entity relationship model is, suppose take an example, I have employee table. In that employee table I'm having employee number. Okay, employee number, employee name, employee salary. The employee number is 01, employee number, and the employee salary 02 and 2000. Okay, now I'm having another table, nothing but department table. Here I'm having department number, department name. Department number is 01, department name is sales. Okay, and department number 2 means HR. Okay, now if I want to get the employee full details, okay, full details nothing but what I need to get the employee number, employee name, employee salary, D name, department name. So if I want to get the employee number, employee name, employee salary, I can get it from this table. But if I want to get the department name also, then I need to get this table, right? So I need to join these two tables, then only I can get the employee full details. Nothing but this is one table and this is one table. The another name of table is what? Entity, right? This is one entity and this is another entity. So the relationship between each and every entity is nothing but a entity relationship model. In the OLTP databases, whatever you are storing in the format of tables, the tables we are calling it as entities in the OLTP database. Each and every entity having its own relationship with the other table. That is nothing but the entity relationship model. Okay, whenever you are storing any data in the database, nothing but OLTP database, the data will be stored in the format of tables, nothing but entities. Suppose you are having 100 tables, each and every table having relationship with the other table. There should be relationship with the other table. That is nothing but the entity relationship model. Whereas coming to the OLAP, Suppose OLAP is also database, and here also we are storing the data in the type in the format of tables only. But here we are not calling the tables as entities. Here we are calling the tables as dimensions and facts. What is dimension? Dimension is nothing but, see, suppose here one table is there, employee table, employee name, employee location is there, employee name and employee location Hyderabad, employee location is something like Bangalore. Okay, this is the table, and I'm having another table, nothing but employee number and employee salary, employee number 01,000, employee number 02, 2000. Now the dimension is nothing but, dimension table is nothing but, it will store descriptive information, descriptive information. Whereas fact is nothing but what? Fact table is is used to store numerical information. Numerical information. Clear, right? Now tell me which is fact table and which is dimension table. Easily we can tell, right? If the data, if the table is storing, if the dimension, if the table is storing some kind of a descriptive information, nothing but character information, that is nothing but a dimension table. Descriptive means what? Character. Character information, nothing but strings. If the data is, if the table is storing some kind of a descriptive information, we are calling it as a dimension table. If the table is used to store numerical information, it is called as a fact table. So we are calling the tables as dimensions and facts. Okay, we are calling the tables as dimensions and facts. So yeah, I'm just talking about that Azure only. Don't worry, because you might aware of Azure. Okay, you might aware of Azure and architecture and all, but most of the people, they are not even know like what is type of fact tables and what is dimension tables and what is ER data model and all. Okay, these are also some questions they might ask you in the interviews. Okay, we'll come to that. Don't worry. Any other questions? Even yeah, I'll tell all the answers, Sarajit. Don't worry. Okay, these are the things I think everyone understood, right? Now we are talking about some kind of Azure data engineering. Okay, it is Azure data engineering is not only you are telling, right, what is the ADF architecture and all. Azure data engineering is not only meant for ADF, Azure Data Factory. There are a number of components. So before going to that components, we need to understand what is the cloud and what is the on-premises. Here in our class, we are trying to talk about all kinds of storage accounts, all kinds of storage accounts, nothing but blob storages, ADLS storages, Azure SQL databases, and Azure Synapse database. Okay, so Azure SQL database is nothing but what? In our Azure, we are considering it as a OLTP. Now you need to know, you know, right, already what is OLTP. Just now we discussed. Azure Synapse data warehouse, we are considering it as OLTP. If I want to go to this Azure itself, you need to understand the basic. Rather than the basic, you cannot understand anything. That's the reason I'm going in detail. And coming to this services, other services in the Azure, we are talking about Azure Data Factory, nothing but Azure Data Factory. And what is the Azure Data Factory meant for, and what is the responsibilities of the Azure Data Factory? If you want to know, first of all, I'll just give you one sample diagram so that you can able to understand. See, just one sample picture I'm giving. Suppose generally in the software industry or in the architecture wise, any other questions? Okay, no, right? Okay. Suppose there are, everyone is migrating to, everyone is learning this cloud technologies these days, right? These days, right? Like everyone is migrating, everyone is learning this AWS or Amazon Web Services or Azure or Google Cloud providers. Why everyone is migrating to the cloud these days? And previously, what is the architecture we are following? What is the architecture of this cloud? I'll tell you just it in one example. See, I'll tell you quickly. See, there are some clients. Okay, there are some clients and they are having some data. And where they are trying to store the data, they are trying to store the data in some specific databases that we are calling it as what? OLTP databases. OLTP databases means current data only it will store, right? And very less amount of data, the performance of the OLTP is very high. So these are the clients, and at the end of the day they are storing their data in some databases. Okay, so at the end of the day what exactly we want means there are some kind of analysis reports. So based on this business, how what is the last year business I want to see in the reports. Then these kind of reports if you want to build like analysis reports, business purpose reports, then first of all the data is available in this database. So different kinds of data is available. So what exactly we need to do first, we need to get the data into one place, right? We need to extract the data into one place, that we are calling it as a staging area. Okay, that we are calling it as what? Staging area. Staging area means middle area. And what here we are doing, here we are having data, source data, and these databases we are calling it as what? These are OLTP databases, nothing but the source databases. Okay, OLTP is nothing but we are considering it as source system. OLTP we are considering it as source systems. Sorry. Whereas OLAP we are considering it as data warehousing systems. Okay, OLAP we are calling it as what? DWH. You heard this word, right? DWH means data warehouse system. Okay. So now, so it is the place what exactly we are doing, we are extracting the data. This is the what we are doing currently in the organizations. Extracting the data means here the data is in different formats. We are converting this, extracting this data, and we are converting this data, nothing but we are transforming the data into a single format. Here different formats data, and we are converting into a single format. Once the data has been converted into single format, then we are loading the data in the centralized warehouse, that we are calling it as what? OLAP, right? OLAP database. We are storing, we are loading the data. Finally what exactly we are doing, once the transformation is done, then we are finally loading the data. What is meant by transforming the data? Transforming the data means converting different kinds of data into a single format data. That is nothing but we are transforming the data. Once the data has been transformed, then we are loading the data into the finalized warehouse. Then some reporting developers will come into picture, and they will take the data, and they will do this kind of reports. And see here, this is what? This is reporting tool. Reporting tool. And this is the reports, business reports we are creating, right? If you want to create this kind of reports, you need to do all this process. We need to get the data. The data is available in the databases, source systems. We need to extract the data, transform the data. Finally we need to load the data into the centralized warehouse. From there reporting developers will come into picture. They'll take the data and they'll do this kind of reports, right? So now tell me, what are the reporting tools are available in the market? Either Tableau, right, or OBIEE or Cognos. These are some kind of reporting tools are available. And what are the ETL tools are available in the market? The ETL tools available in the market is Informatica, right? Informatica or ODI or data stage. These are some kind of reporting tools are available. And the databases, n number of databases are available like Oracle, SQL Server, right? Oracle database, SQL Server database, DB2 database, Sybase, Teradata, Postgre. Okay, these are some kind of different types of databases are available. So if you want to create these kind of reports in the on premises means what? We need to install these softwares in our local machines, and we need to work on it. And also if I want to complete this project to create this kind of reports, I need reporting developers, and I need to install any one of the reporting tool. I need some ETL tools, and I need to install some of the reporting ETL tools as well. But if you want to do the same thing in the cloud, nothing but in our Azure. Okay, in our Azure, if you want to do the same thing, Just to take an example of our Azure, Microsoft Azure, nothing but a cloud technology. Here, the client, they are having some kind of source data, right? So where they are storing their source data means our Azure, Microsoft Azure is having our own OLTP databases or our own storage accounts. We are calling it as what? Storage accounts. First of all, if you want to process the data, we need to get the data inside the cloud, right? If you are getting the data inside the cloud, means you need to store the data inside the cloud, right? First of all, that's what we are doing. Once the data is available inside the cloud, then what we are doing, we need to process the data, right? We need to process the data, nothing but we need to transform the data into a single format. Like here, we are extracting, and here we are transforming, and finally we are loading into the centralized warehouse. Okay, centralized warehouse, that is nothing but the OLAP. And our Azure is having our own OLAP also, that is nothing but the Azure Synapse warehouse. This is what? Azure Synapse warehouse. And here we are doing what? Finally, once the data is transformed, then finally we are loading into OLAP. Our Azure is having our own OLAP also, nothing but Azure Synapse warehouse. And here what we are doing, here we are loading the data, nothing but ETL process we are using. Here also we are extracting the data, we are transforming the data into single format, and we are loading into the centralized warehouse, nothing but ETL process we are doing. So to do the ETL process inside the cloud, we are using Azure Data Factory, Azure Databricks. Okay, so if you want to do the ETL process in the on premises, so either you need to use any ETL tools are available in the market like Informatica, ODI, Data Stage. But the disadvantage is you need to install the softwares, and if you want to work complete this kind of projects, and you need to get the developers who all are familiar with this technology. They can only understand and they can only do the ETL process, right? But here we are not installing anything, just we are creating one cloud account like our Gmail account, how we are creating, just like that we'll create, and we can utilize the services, no need of any infrastructure related things. So now you understood, right? And once the data is available in the Synapse data warehouse, then we need to do the reporting, right? And our Microsoft is Azure having our own reporting tool also, that is nothing but the Power BI. And from this we can create this kind of reports, business analysis reports we can create. See here, if you observe clearly, okay, if you observe clearly, storage accounts are Azure SQL databases, we can store the data. If you observe clearly, we are not integrating any third party tools like this. Here we are using Oracle database, and here we are using to do the ETL process Informatica, and here to do the reporting we are using Oracle, suppose Tableau. Okay, these kind of different third party tools we are using, and different developers we are acquiring to complete the project. But here there is no third party tool we are using, all the services are related to Azure only. Azure SQL databases to store the data, Azure Data Factory to do the ETL process, Azure Synapse warehouse to load the data, and Power BI to do the reporting. And only one person is capable of handling the data end to end, that is nothing but the ADE, Azure Data Engineering. What we are doing, we are getting the data from the source systems, we are storing the data inside the cloud, we are doing the extraction of data, we are doing the transformation of data, we are loading the data into the Azure Synapse warehouse, nothing but we are talking about entire data. Continuously we are talking about data, that is nothing but the Azure Data Engineering responsibility. Till to load the data inside the Azure Synapse warehouse is our responsibility, Azure Data Engineering responsibility. And if you are creating these services inside the cloud, nothing but ADF if you are creating, storage accounts if you are creating, Synapse data warehouse if you are creating, then it is kind of a admin role. So there are two types of roles in the Azure. Okay, there are roles in Azure is what? Whenever you are joining in any organization, okay, whenever you are joining in any organization, there are only mainly two roles. One is what? Azure Data Engineer role, kind of developer we can talk about. One is Azure DevOps Engineer role, nothing but admin. Okay. If you are creating the resources, if you are utilizing the resources, if you are providing the access, if you are restricting the access, if you are deploying the code, then it is nothing but a Azure DevOps. Whereas if you are talking about the data, entire data, how to transform, how to extract, how to load, and how to place the data into the finalized warehouse, mainly talking about data, nothing but Azure data engineer. Clear? Clear, right, everyone? And someone is asking what is the curriculum of Azure Data Factory. Azure Data Factory, we are not only talking about the Azure Data Factory, most of the other services also will be touching. Okay, not only Azure Data Factory. Azure Data Factory is a ETL process which we are using inside the cloud. And in the Azure Data Factory, we'll talk about, if I tell now, most of the people may not aware components, components in Azure Data Factory. We'll talk about integration runtimes. Okay, we'll talk about integration runtimes, linked services, data sets, triggers, data flows, pipelines, activities. These all things we will be discussing. Not only this one, there are a number of scenarios like how to ingest the data. See, first of all, this Azure Data Factory will be mainly doing two things. Okay, it is the Azure Data Factory is mainly doing the two things. One is to ingest the data, to ingest the data, nothing but what, copying the data. Ingesting means what? Copying the data, we are calling it as ingesting the data. And nothing, next one is to transform the, to transform the data. These are the two main things. So someone is asking what is the Azure architecture, right? There is no specific like architecture. Suppose what exactly we are doing by making use of Azure is, suppose you are having some data, and this is nothing but on premises. On premises means in our local machine. Okay, on premises means in our local machine. In my local machine, I have some database. Okay, Microsoft SQL Server database is available, and I have some data. Okay, I have some table like employee table is available, and here some records are there. If I want to migrate this data into the cloud, okay, if I want to migrate this data from on premises to the cloud, then means what? We are just copying the data from here to here. That is nothing but we are ingesting the data. So ADF can able to ingest the data. Suppose there are having 5 records, and you are having ingesting how many records into the storage account. So where you are ingesting this data into some kind of storage accounts. We'll talk about what is the storage account. So here some 5 records are there. Obviously ingesting means blindly copying the data, whatever the data it is having, ingesting the data. And next one, there are some scenarios, there are 5 columns, but while loading the data, you need to load 6 columns. How come means, suppose you are having salary column here, but while loading the data, you need salary column as well as annual salary column. Annual salary means salary into 12, right? Salary into 12 is nothing but annual salary. Means before, there are two things. One is ingesting the data, means directly copying the data from source to target. Second one is transforming the data, means whatever the data it is available, before loading, we are just transforming the data and loading. Nothing but annual salary column itself, it is not there in the source. But while loading, we are creating that column, annual salary column, by salary into 12. This is nothing but the transformations. So these are the two main things Azure Data Factory will be capable of doing, like to ingest the data as well as to transform the data. And Azure Data Factory is a ETL or ELT process which we are using inside the cloud to do the ETL process. Clear, everyone? What's the difference between big data and Azure Data Factory? See, big data is you know, right, already what is meant by big data. First of all, so huge amount of data, large volumes of data we can store in the big data, right? Big data is nothing but what, huge amount of data, or the name itself, it is staying big data. Nothing but Hadoop, one of the technology which we are using to handle big data. So why big data came into picture means, Previously we used to store the data in the OLTP database, nothing but just now we spoke, right? Like some kind of transactional databases. Next, the data is getting huge. Based on the population, the data is also increasing like anything. So that to store those kind of data, next on top of databases, we got Teradata came into picture. And even these days, Teradata is also not capable of handling huge amount of data. Then big data came into picture. Big data means vast amount of data we can store, and also any kind of data or any format of data, either it is a structured format, semi-structured format, unstructured format, any kind of data we can store. So big data is mainly capable of doing two things. One is to store the data, here also to store the data, and to process the data. To store the data in the big data, we are using HDFS, Hadoop Distributed File System. To process the data, we are using MR, nothing but map reduce. Suppose if you want to store in the big data, means this is, suppose assume this is a big data, and there should be some storage place where we need to store inside the big data, then only we can process the data. That's what, first of all, we need to store the data. That is nothing but the HDFS is a place where we are storing the data. Once the data is available inside the HDFS, then we can process the data by making use of map reduce. Okay, this is kind of things it will follow. But whereas our ADF is what? ADF is a ETL or ELT process which we are using inside the cloud to do extraction, transforming, and loading. And ETL is capable of doing mainly two things. One is to ingest the data as well as to transform the data. Clear, everyone? Curriculum of Azure Data Factory I explained, but most of the other things also, not only Azure Data Factory, we are going to talk about in this class all kinds of storage accounts, as I discussed in the previously. All kinds of storage accounts. You need to, first of all, whenever you want to learn this Azure Data Factory, means ETL process. When you will do the ETL process, once the data is available in the storage account, then only we can do the ETL process, right? So first of all, you need to understand how we can store and in how many ways we can store the data inside the cloud. If you understand this, then we can go to this ETL process by making use of ADF, and also how to load the data into the Azure Synapse Warehouse. Till here, ADF, Azure Data Engineering responsibility to load the data. Okay, to do the reporting, it is not our responsibility. Power BI reporting developers will take care of it. Okay, and apart from this, once all the storage accounts done, I'll talk about this data factory, and most of the components I'll talk. Not only these components, I will explain a number of scenarios, like copying one file to one table, one file to multiple tables, multiple files to one table. Okay, multiple files to multiple tables. These all are the scenarios and different kinds of transformations and incremental loading mechanisms and poly-based mechanisms and slowly changing dimension mechanisms. These all mechanisms I cannot tell in like by writing, because a number of concepts are there in the ADF. Not only the components, a number of other mechanisms are there to transform the techniques and the ingesting techniques. All things we'll talk about. And also I'll be discussing very advanced topics in the class, like Azure, Cosmos DB, and also real time streaming data, how to capture the streaming data. These are the advanced topics I'll cover, not try, I'll cover. And also real time project explanation. Okay, real time project I'll explain. And the next one is, if you want a resume preparation also, I'll do for you. And most of the times Spark architecture will be covering. Okay, Spark architecture will be covering. Sorry. And also I told you, right, there are mainly two roles. One is Azure data engineer role, and one is Azure DevOps engineer role, right? So in this, not only this Azure Data Factory and real-time concepts and real-time project estimation, Spark architecture. Apart from this, I'll try to cover Azure DevOps concepts also, which is related to CI/CD. Nothing but continuous integration and continuous deployment, means whenever you have done the development in the development environment, how to move this code from one environment to another environment, that is the Azure DevOps engineer responsibility. That is also I'll complete in this Azure DevOps CI/CD. There are two main topics. One is ARM templates, we'll be discussing, and next one is Azure DevOps Git repository. DevOps Git repository we'll discussing. So that's all. I tried to cover all the things in the demo class. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. Otherwise, we can continue our class tomorrow. Anyone? Any questions? Any questions? Anyone? Any questions? Or everyone is clear with the explanation? Okay, we'll meet tomorrow. Please connect with the front end team. So the classes will be starting from tomorrow. So please connect with them and join the classes from 8 to 9 tomorrow onwards. Okay, thank you all. Thanks for joining.